Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest narration of the web series, The Burning Ones. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 23, The Boy in the Bubble. He spoke, the priest exclaimed. He let go of Lorenzo and stumbled backwards. Mark's fires faded. His jaw was slack. I saw Zevi was kneeling in front of the boy, holding the computer up. Lorenzo reached out to touch the screen, and the fires on his hands sputtered out. This is not pos... Mark's eyes sparked with blue flame and terror. He grabbed me by the shoulders and pulled me backwards. The priest ran with us, holding up the wall of white light as the explosion barreled towards us. Glow bug! Lorenzo wailed. Zevi was dragging himself towards the other end of the corridor. The decking beneath Lorenzo rattled and began to glow. First yellow, then orange, then blue. We have to contain this, Mark shouted. He and the priests began casting wave after wave of white light down the length of the corridor, extinguishing flames as they passed. Zevi pulled himself to a knee and did the same from the other end. Oh God, that kid's gonna burn, Breaker exclaimed, horrified. He was half-dressed, but he had his rifle in his right hand balanced against the shield in his left. The lights beneath Lorenzo grew brighter. The monster, now partially separated from Lorenzo's body, screeched and spat fire at the floor. The decking and walls were literally melting. Mark growled. The effort was draining him. Lorenzo was no longer visible. The flames were too high. Even with the efforts of Mark and the clerics, it was turning into an inferno. I wasn't sure the boy could survive this. The priest dropped his left hand and stumbled to his knee, but kept casting from his right. Mark, screaming and staggering forward, past the fallen cleric, casting frantically from both hands. Ghost's eyes were burning so brightly, I couldn't see Mark's face anymore. These humans were the only thing keeping the entire ship from melting. Their guardian shields were containing the heat, slowly pushing it backwards towards its source. The boy was trapped. I couldn't feel the heat, but I could see it in infrared. The firestorm blazed like nothing I'd ever seen. Glow bug! Lorenzo cried. Help me! The priest was back. His left hand was shaking, clutching for a string of crystalline beads. He stood beside Mark and redoubled his efforts. I could no longer see Zevi, but unlike Mark and the priest, he was not screaming. He was laughing. The monster screeched. The wall panel exploded. Pieces of plating spiraled in all directions. The priest leapt into the air, his guardian wings carrying him past Mark towards the shrapnel. The priest raised his hands above his head, and his guardian launched free of his body, expanding in size and speed of the explosion. The priest dropped to the ground and collapsed face down. The burning one took all the shrapnel. Each piece of plating melted as it entered his body. Zevi, push! Mark shouted and slowly walked forward. Ghost thrust his wings, stabilizing Mark against the gusting inferno. The flames were dying out. I could see through the fire now. Lorenzo was crouching, arms wrapped around his head. In the center of the corridor, the monster had grown. It was 4 times as large as before, and was only connected to the boy through its left leg. It was alternating between breathing fire at Mark and Zevi, who had advanced from the other side. It could no longer keep up. Its human host was unwilling, but the monster refused to let go. Glowbug, Lorenzo begged. Help me, please. Blue fire shot through the floor. A ring of sapphire light formed around the puddle, blacker than the darkest night. A fist broke free of the darkness. It was burning, brilliantly clearer blue than the skies of Seraph after a storm. The fist opened and grabbed hold of the monster's foot. The monster turned its maw on the floor, spewing fire with renewed vigor. Twin wings broke in, tearing through the dimensional barriers. They expanded like an umbrella, shielding the entrance from the fire. The disembodied arm heaved and pulled its way further into our universe. The shoulders and head of a burning one were now visible. A second arm broke through and latched onto the monster's leg. The guardian's eyes were blazing with azure fire. Glowbug yanked the monster to the ground and simultaneously pulled the rest of his body free of the darkness he had spawned from. His hands worked their way up to the monster's body, ripping out chunks as they went, until they found purchase on the monster's throat. The monster roared. It thrashed violently, trying to free itself from Glowbug's iron grip. The burning one's wings snapped twice, yanked both creatures into the air. His eyes flashed, pulsing through the spectrum of blue until they turned pure white. His shoulders heaved and rippled. The light grew brighter, spreading through his entire form. The monster's head began to tear free of its shoulders. And then the creature exploded, vanishing in a blast of orange light. Ash rained down from the explosion. The black hole on the floor snapped closed with a sharp crack. Glowbug dropped to the floor and swept Lorenzo into his arms as the boy collapsed, unconscious. He gently lowered Lorenzo's body to the ground. Mark and Zevi fired one more salvo, extinguishing the last of the fires. Lorenzo was covered in ash. His eyes flickered open, and he smiled up at his returned guardian. "You came." Glowbug's blue fires faded to a gentle greenish yellow. He looked kindly on the child beneath him. Then he raised his first finger, illuminating it brightly, and tapped Lorenzo on the nose. A pulse went out of his fingertip and dissolved all the ash, cleansing the boy of the final remnants of the evil creature he had been captive to. Lorenzo giggled and batted his nose. Breaker stole a quick glance out from behind his shield where Sevie and Don had taken cover. "Yo, boss, is it all like terrifying, done, man?" "It's over," Mark said. He was breathing heavily. He pointed to Lorenzo and said, "Don, Sevie, go check him out. He's safe." "Done it, boss." Sevie immediately ran out from behind Breaker's shield, carrying a medic's pack, completely fearless. Don followed her a little more carefully. Breaker advanced and helped the priest up. "I got you, Padre." Zevi walked past Lorenzo as Sevie and Don scanned him for injuries. His beard was smoldering on one side. He shook Mark's hand and then approached me, smiling broadly. "Thank you, friend." Zevi extended a hand and said, "I do not understand how you knew, but you have saved a life today. There is no greater deed." I shook his hand and did my best to smile back. "I only found a video." "You have done what I could not in a decade of searching," Zevi said. He wiped a tear from his good eye. His face was glowing with joy. "I knew there was more to this problem. I only had no proof." Mark, Breaker, and the priest joined us. "You did well, Antonio," Zevi said, "but next time try not to fall on your face. It makes us all look bad." Antonio pointed at Zevi's beard. "At least my beard's not on fire." "Oi!" Zevi yelped and swatted the embers as he shrugged. It was worth it." I could see Don, Sevie, and Glowbug kneeling around Lorenzo. Don was doing magic tricks and making the child laugh while Sevie cleaned up the abrasions on his leg. I looked around at the charred hallway. There were puddles of melting, fire-suppressant foam everywhere. Large pieces of shrapnel were protruding from the walls, ceiling, and floor. A lighting unit cracked, wobbled out of the ceiling mount, and crashed to the floor. "So," Breaker said loudly, "a priest, a rabbi, and a wizard walk into a spaceship. The wizard says to the captain, 'You guys have insurance on this boat, right?'" End of chapter. I'd quickly like to thank the T5 peeps: Cold War Boomerwaffen, Sevaren Serberous, Bushmaster 177, Henry the Red, Casper Arnholtz, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Elijah Silvercross, Dragzoon W.R.E, and Sevaren Serberous. Thank you very much.